The rain hammered against the windows of our little cottage in the Cotswolds, each drop a painful reminder of the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Genevieve and I had built a life here, a cozy haven filled with laughter, shared dreams, and what I foolishly believed was unwavering love. I'm Alaric, a 46-year-old artist, and until recently my world was painted in vibrant hues of contentment. Now, it was all shades of gray, stained with the bitter taste of betrayal. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Genevieve, a vibrant and outgoing marketing executive, had always been meticulous about her appearance, but lately there was a new level of attention, a frantic energy that felt off. She'd spend hours in front of the mirror, experimenting with new makeup, agonizing over outfits. Our conversations, once easy and flowing, became stilted, filled with awkward silences and evasive answers. When I asked her about it, she'd dismiss my concerns with a wave of her hand, blaming it on a stressful new project at work. "Just trying to stay competitive, darling," she'd say, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. Then came the late nights. "Urgent deadlines," she'd explain, her voice tight with a nervousness I hadn't noticed before. "Conference calls with the Singapore office." I, ever the trusting fool, accepted her explanations without question. I'd heat up her dinner, leave it in the oven with a note, and head to bed alone, the empty space beside me growing colder each night. I missed her presence, her warmth, the easy intimacy we once shared. But I trusted her, or so I thought. The first real crack in my carefully constructed reality appeared a few weeks ago. I was working late in my studio, struggling to capture the elusive light in a landscape painting. Genevieve was supposedly at a work dinner, but I decided to surprise her with a late-night cup of tea at her office. I knew she'd appreciate the gesture. I drove the 20 minutes to the sleek, modern office building where she worked, a place I'd visited countless times before. The security guard, a friendly young man named Caius, greeted me with a polite nod. "Evening, Mr. Ainsworth. Mrs. Ainsworth is still upstairs, I believe." I thanked him and took the elevator to her floor. The office was eerily quiet, the only sound the hum of the air conditioning. I walked down the deserted hallway to Genevieve's office, the anticipation of seeing her, of sharing a quiet moment together, filling me with a warm glow. But as I approached her door, I heard voices, muffled but unmistakable. Genevieve's voice and another, deeper voice, laced with a familiarity that sent a shiver down my spine. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the door handle. Something told me I shouldn't be hearing this. Driven by an instinct I couldn't ignore, I pressed my ear against the door. The voices became clearer, the words cutting through the silence like shards of glass. "Oh, Adrian, it's so good to see you," Genevieve purred, her voice dripping with a sweetness I hadn't heard directed at me in months. "I've missed you terribly, Adrian." The name slammed into me like a physical blow. Who was Adrian, and why was Genevieve missing him? A wave of nausea washed over me, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to burst through the door to demand answers, to scream at her for her betrayal, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, paralyzed by the shock of what I was hearing. "I miss you too, Jen," the voice replied, smooth and confident. "These past few weeks have been torture. I can't wait until we can finally be together without having to sneak around like this. Sneak around." The words echoed in my mind, confirming my worst fears. They were having an affair. Genevieve, my wife, the woman I loved, was betraying me with another man. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, the solid ground beneath my feet dissolving into quicksand. I stumbled back from the door, my legs weak and trembling. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't comprehend the enormity of what I had just heard. I fled the office, my mind reeling, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I drove home in a daze, the rain blurring my vision, the headlights of oncoming cars blinding me. I parked the car in the driveway and stumbled into the house, the silence amplifying the turmoil within me. I wandered aimlessly through the rooms, touching familiar objects, each one a painful reminder of the life we had built together, a life that was now a lie. Genevieve came home later that night, her face flushed, her eyes bright. She greeted me with a perfunctory kiss, her usual excuse about the long work dinner ready on her lips, but I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't bear to look at her, to hear her lies. "Who is Adrian?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Her face paled, her eyes widening in alarm. Adrian, what are you talking about? She stammered, her voice trembling. I don't know any Adrian. Don't lie to me, Genevieve, I said, my voice rising with anger. I heard you. I heard you talking to him at your office. You said you missed him, that you couldn't wait to be together. She stared at me, her eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape. Then the lies crumbled and the truth spilled out in a torrent of tears and excuses. It just happened, she sobbed. I didn't mean for it to happen. He's just a colleague, Alaric. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything, I repeated, my voice incredulous. You're having an affair, Genevieve. You're betraying our marriage, our life together. How can you say it doesn't mean anything? She tried to touch me, to comfort me, but I recoiled from her touch. I couldn't bear to be near her, to feel her skin against mine, knowing that she had been with another man. I'm so sorry, Alaric, she cried. Please forgive me. I'll end it, I promise. Just give me another chance. But I couldn't forgive her. The trust was broken, the foundation of our marriage shattered beyond repair. I looked at her, at the woman I had loved for so long, and I saw a stranger, a liar, a betrayer. It's over, Genevieve, I said, my voice cold, and I want you to leave. She begged me to reconsider, to give her another chance, but my mind was made up. I couldn't stay with her, not after what she had done. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and painful conversations. We divided our assets, sold the cottage, and went our separate ways. Genevieve moved to London, presumably to be with Adrian. I stayed in the Cotswolds, renting a small apartment near my studio, trying to piece my life back together. The pain was excruciating, a constant ache in my chest. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on my work. I was consumed by anger, sadness, and a deep sense of loss. I had lost not only my wife but also my best friend, my confidant, the person I had shared my life with for 20 years. As the months passed, the pain began to subside, replaced by a dull ache of resignation. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the creative process. I started painting again, capturing the beauty of the Cotswolds landscape, the rolling hills, the ancient stone walls, the ever-changing light. My paintings became darker, more introspective, reflecting the turmoil I had experienced. But they also became more powerful, more authentic, imbued with a raw emotion that resonated with others. One day I received a letter from Genevieve. It was a long, rambling apology, filled with regrets and justifications. She claimed that she had been unhappy for years, that she felt stifled by our quiet life in the Cotswolds, that she needed excitement and adventure. She said that Adrian had offered her that, a glimpse into a different world, a world of glamour and excitement. I read the letter with a detached curiosity, feeling nothing but a faint sense of pity. I had moved on, or at least, I was trying to. I had accepted that our marriage was over, that Genevieve was no longer the woman I thought I knew. She was someone else, someone I didn't recognize, someone I didn't want to know. I didn't reply to her letter. I didn't see the point. There was nothing left to say. A few months later, I heard through a mutual friend that Genevieve and Adrian had broken up. The glamour and excitement had faded, replaced by the mundane realities of everyday life. Adrian had apparently moved on to someone younger, someone more exciting. Genevieve was alone, living in a small apartment in London, working a dead-end job. I felt a twinge of satisfaction, a small measure of justice for the pain she had caused me. But it was fleeting. Her misery didn't bring me happiness. It didn't undo the past. It didn't change the fact that I had been betrayed by the woman I loved. I continued to paint, to heal, to rebuild my life. I met new people, made new friends, and slowly began to open my heart again. I realized that I was stronger than I thought, more resilient than I ever imagined. I had survived the storm, and I had emerged on the other side, scarred but not broken. Then, 2 years after the divorce, I received a phone call. It was from Caius, the security guard at Genevieve's old office. He sounded nervous, hesitant. "Mr. Ainsworth," he said, "I know this is probably none of my business, but I felt like you should know something." He told me that he had seen Genevieve and Adrian together on several occasions, not just at the office but also at a small flat in town. He had suspected they were having an affair, but he didn't want to get involved. However, he had recently discovered something that he felt compelled to share with me. "I overheard them talking one night," Caius said. "They were arguing about money. Adrian was demanding more money from Genevieve and she was refusing. He said that he had evidence that could ruin her career, that he would expose her affair to her boss if she didn't pay him. What kind of evidence? I asked, my curiosity piqued. He said he had photos and videos, Caius replied. He had been secretly recording their encounters. He was planning to use them to blackmail her. A wave of anger washed over me, not for Genevieve but for Adrian. The man was a snake, a predator, a scoundrel. He had not only betrayed me but was now exploiting Genevieve for his own gain. I felt a strange sense of protectiveness towards her, a remnant of the love I once had. Thank you, Caius, I said. I appreciate you telling me this. I hung up the phone and thought for a moment. What should I do? Should I confront Adrian? Should I warn Genevieve? I decided to do both. I tracked down Adrian's address through a mutual acquaintance. He lived in a trendy apartment in central London, a far cry from the humble cottage in the Cotswolds. I drove to London and waited outside his apartment building until he emerged. He was just as I remembered him, arrogant and self-assured. Adrian, I said, stepping in front of him. We need to talk. He looked at me with a mixture of surprise and annoyance. Alaric, what are you doing here? I know about the photos and videos, I said, my voice. I know you're blackmailing Genevieve. He paled, his eyes darting around nervously. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. Don't lie to me, I said, stepping closer. I know everything. I know you're a snake, Adrian. You're a predator. You're exploiting Genevieve for your own gain. He tried to brush past me, but I grabbed his arm. I'm warning you, Adrian, I said. If you don't delete those photos and videos, I will go to the police. I will expose you for who you are. He glared at me, his face contorted with anger. You can't prove anything, he sneered. I don't need to prove anything, I said. I just need to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are. I released his arm and walked away, leaving him standing there, seething with rage. I knew he wouldn't delete the photos and videos. He was too greedy, too selfish. But I had planted the seed of doubt in his mind. I had let him know that I was watching him, that I wouldn't let him get away with his scheme. I then drove to Genevieve's apartment. She was surprised to see me, her face a mixture of confusion and apprehension. Alaric, what are you doing here? I know about Adrian, I said. I know he's blackmailing you. Her face crumpled and she burst into tears. Oh, Alaric, she sobbed. I am so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I sat down beside her and put my arm around her. I didn't love her anymore, but I couldn't bear to see her in so much pain. It's okay, Genevieve, I said. I am here to help. I told her about my conversation with Adrian and my threat to go to the police. I advised her to report him to the authorities and to seek legal counsel. I also offered to help her financially, to pay for her legal fees and to support her until she could get back on her feet. She looked at me, her eyes filled with gratitude. Why are you doing this, Alaric? She asked. After everything I've done to you, because it's the right thing to do, I said. Because you don't deserve to be exploited by that snake. Because I still care about you, Genevieve, even though I don't love you anymore. She threw her arms around me and hugged me tightly. Thank you, Alaric, she said. Thank you for being so kind. Genevieve took my advice and reported Adrian to the police. He was arrested and charged with blackmail and extortion. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to several years in prison. Genevieve was devastated by the experience, but she slowly began to rebuild her life. She found a new job, made new friends, and started therapy to deal with her emotional issues. She also apologized to me, sincerely and humbly, for the pain she had caused me. I forgave her, not because I condoned her actions, but because I needed to let go of the anger and resentment that had been consuming me for so long. I realized that holding onto the past was only hurting me, preventing me from moving forward. I continued to paint, to heal, to live my life to the fullest. I found happiness in my work, in my friendships, and in my own inner peace. I never remarried, but I did find love again, a deeper, more meaningful love that was based on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. Looking back on that dark chapter of my life, I realized that betrayal can be a catalyst for growth. It can shatter your world, but it can also force you to confront your own vulnerabilities, to discover your own strength, and to create a new, more authentic version of yourself. And sometimes, it can even lead you to an unexpected act of kindness, a moment of forgiveness that can heal not only yourself, but also the person who betrayed you.